For 12 years, Two and a Half Men was one of the most watched comedies on American television. It survived a headline-grabbing meltdown, a leading man's public firing, a mid-run cast overhaul, and a young actor's very public rejection of the show that made him famous. Somehow, through all of it, the series kept going. But when the final episode aired in 2015, it didn't close quietly. It closed with a strange, almost absurd image that left viewers stunned and talking for years afterward. What was that scene really about? Was it a tribute, a joke, or a message aimed squarely at the actor who had left years earlier under such chaotic circumstances? To understand why that finale mattered so much, you have to go back to where the show began. Two and a Half Men premiered in 2003, the brainchild of veteran television producer Chuck Lorre and writer Lee Aronson. The idea reportedly took shape after Lorre had a conversation with a friend who was going through a divorce and had moved in with his unmarried brother while raising a son. That domestic setup, two very different adult men sharing a house with a child caught in the middle, became the seed of the series. The show that eventually aired wasn't the show that was originally pitched. Early versions of the concept were reportedly more provocative, involving a different family structure, and network executives at CBS were wary that the premise could alienate viewers or generate controversy. The idea was reshaped into something more conventional: a freewheeling, financially comfortable bachelor, his uptight and recently divorced brother, and the brother's adolescent son, all living under one roof in a beachside house. Even after the concept was locked in, the production almost didn't happen. The pilot was expensive to produce relative to typical sitcoms of that era, and network executives reportedly considered scrapping the project shortly before filming began. According to accounts from people involved in the production, Chuck Lorre took a pay cut and helped renegotiate contracts to keep the budget workable, which was enough to convince CBS to move forward. The show's now iconic beach house set was designed to resemble Lorre's own home, and the simple, jaunty theme song was written quickly, in under an hour, shortly before production started. Even the title took time to settle on. Several other names were floated before the network landed on Two and a Half Men just weeks before the premiere. None of that behind-the-scenes uncertainty showed up on screen. Within a few seasons, the show had become a ratings powerhouse, and much of that success rested on the shoulders of one performer. Charlie Sheen played Charlie Harper, a jingle writer who lived exactly the way a certain kind of viewer might secretly fantasize about living. No boss, no rules, an endless string of romantic partners, and a total allergy to responsibility. The character drank freely, avoided commitment, and rarely faced real consequences for his behavior. Audiences loved it. Part of the appeal was that Charlie Harper felt flawed in a way that made him likable rather than repellent, a selfish man who was still somehow easy to root for. There was also an uncomfortable, magnetic overlap between the character and the actor playing him. Sheen's public reputation for hard-partying excess bled into how audiences understood Charlie Harper, and that blurred line between performance and reality only made people more curious about him. By the 2008 to 2009 season, the show was pulling in well over 15 million viewers per episode, an enormous number for a network sitcom. Sheen's paycheck grew right along with the ratings. By 2010, when it came time to negotiate a new contract, he was already one of the highest-paid actors on television, and he pushed for a dramatic raise, reportedly asking for roughly double his existing per-episode rate. Negotiations were tense enough that talks reportedly continued even during a basketball game Sheen was attending. Eventually, a deal was reached that made him, by many accounts, the highest-paid actor in television history at the time, worth close to $2 million an episode once profit participation was factored in. That level of investment might have seemed unthinkable given what had already happened in Sheen's personal life. He had been arrested on a domestic violence charge in late 2009, and yet the studio still committed to an enormous new contract with him just months later, a decision that reflected how completely the show's commercial fortunes were tied to his star power. Behind the scenes, cracks were forming that the ratings couldn't hide. Reports from the production described Sheen showing up to set in no condition to work, unable to remember lines, forcing the writing staff to scramble and redistribute his dialogue to other cast members on short notice. Sheen also grew openly hostile toward Chuck Lorre, criticizing scripts harshly and, according to multiple accounts, tearing pages apart in frustration in front of colleagues. This wasn't a new pattern for Sheen. He had struggled with substance abuse dating back to the late 1990s, including an overdose that led to his first stint in rehab. Those struggles resurfaced repeatedly over the years that followed, including another arrest around the 2009 holiday season connected to an incident involving his then-wife, and a widely reported hotel room incident in New York in 2010 that resulted in significant property damage and yet another return to treatment. By January 2011, the situation had become impossible to manage quietly. CBS and Warner Brothers halted production so Sheen could seek treatment, an attempt to protect both the show and the actor. Instead of stabilizing, things escalated. Sheen was reported to have thrown an extended, chaotic party that ended with a hospital visit, all while insisting publicly that he was completely fine. Then came the radio interview. In February 2011, Sheen used a public platform to lash out at Chuck Lorre in deeply personal terms, making outlandish claims about his own invincibility and identity. The comments went viral almost instantly, spawning catchphrases that spread across entertainment media and turned Sheen's unraveling into a kind of ongoing public spectacle. He gave interview after interview in the weeks that followed, each one stranger than the last. And when he joined Twitter in March 2011, he broke records by gaining 1 million followers within a single day, driven largely by sheer curiosity about what he might say next. CBS and Warner Brothers could only tolerate the disruption for so long. On March 7, 2011, Charlie Sheen was officially terminated from 2.5 Men, even though he was, at that moment, still the highest-paid actor on the network. The studio's termination letter, reportedly running 11 pages, accused Sheen of repeatedly insulting Chuck Lorre, disrupting production, and potentially breaking the law by supplying illegal substances to others on set. It also expressed genuine concern for his well-being. The fallout extended well beyond Sheen himself. Roughly 200 crew and production staff were affected when the remaining episodes of that season were scrapped, a decision that reportedly cost the studio around $10 million. It was a rare instance of a major network prioritizing workplace conduct over a guaranteed hit. Sheen didn't go quietly. Just days after his firing, he filed a $100 million lawsuit against Warner Brothers and Chuck Lorre, arguing that his dismissal was unjustified. The legal fight over where the case would even be heard, in open court or private arbitration, dragged on for months before a judge ruled in the summer of 2011 that arbitration was required under Sheen's contract. By that September, the dispute quietly settled, with the exact terms never disclosed, though various reports estimated Sheen's eventual payout, combining an upfront settlement with ongoing rerun royalties, could have approached or exceeded $100 million over time. With its lead actor gone and its highest-rated show in limbo, CBS scrambled to find someone who could keep 2.5 Men alive. Hugh Grant reportedly came close to taking over the role, with talks advancing far enough that a 7-figure per episode deal was on the table. Those negotiations collapsed in May 2011 over creative differences, leaving the network without a lead actor just days before it needed to present its full lineup to advertisers. Ashton Kutcher entered the picture almost immediately afterward, and the deal came together fast. He signed on for a season's worth of episodes at a rate far below what Sheen had been earning, though still a substantial payday by any normal industry standard. CBS announced the casting in mid-May 2011, just in time to steady its advertiser presentation. Kutcher's first episode aired that September and opened with the funeral of Charlie Harper, whose death was explained within the story as a bizarre accident involving a train in Paris, a dark, comedic way of writing the previous lead out entirely. The premiere drew roughly double the show's usual audience, driven largely by curiosity about how the series would reinvent itself. Kutcher's character, Walden Schmidt, was written as almost a mirror opposite of Charlie Harper. Wealthy, yes, but socially awkward, emotionally raw, and freshly wounded from a divorce rather than proudly avoiding commitment. The show leaned into that contrast, restructuring the dynamic between the household's 2 adult men so that Alan, previously the perpetually confused one, now found himself in the position of guiding Walden through everyday life. It gave the back half of the series a genuinely different flavor, even as it kept the broad comedic rhythms that longtime viewers expected. As the show adjusted to its new leading man, another cast member was going through a very different kind of transformation. Angus T. Jones had played Jake Harper, the show's original half-man, since he was 10 years old. As Walden took over the role of the naive, easily led character in the house, Jake's presence in the storylines gradually shrank, and by the 11th season he barely appeared at all. In 2012, Jones stunned fans by appearing in an online video tied to a religious organization, urging viewers to stop watching the very show that had made him a household name. He described feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the show's humor and content, a discomfort that had been building for a while and that intensified after he became involved with a Seventh-day Adventist congregation and was baptized. He later issued an apology for how his comments landed, without walking back his underlying concerns. The fallout strained his relationships with castmates and with Chuck Lorre, and by 2013 CBS confirmed Jones would not continue as a regular part of the show. He left acting behind almost entirely afterward, enrolling at the University of Colorado Boulder to study environmental and Jewish studies, and later saying in interviews that he felt more at peace than he had in years. By the time 2.5 Men reached its 12th and final season, it had already lived through more turmoil than most sitcoms experience in their entire run. CBS built enormous anticipation for the series finale, titled Of Course Is Dead, and promotional material teased the possibility that Charlie Sheen himself might make some kind of appearance, without ever confirming it outright. That ambiguity kept fans guessing for weeks. Angus T. Jones made a brief, meaningful return for the finale, appearing as a grown, financially successful version of Jake who had quietly invested the money his uncle had given him years earlier. Jon Cryer promoted the episode publicly, describing it in interviews as unpredictable, which only stoked more speculation. The second-to-last episode ended on a cliffhanger involving a mysterious package addressed to Charlie, sending fan theories spreading rapidly online. The day before the finale aired, Sheen posted a cryptic message suggesting he wouldn't be involved, mixed with jokes about other projects, which did nothing to settle the debate. Production had kept the script tightly guarded, filming the episode months earlier and limiting how much of it any single actor or guest star could see in advance. When the finale finally aired in February 2015, it drew over 13 million viewers, a strong number for a show in its final stretch. Then came the scene everyone still talks about. A man resembling Charlie Harper approached the beach house and rang the doorbell. Before the door could even open, a full-sized grand piano dropped from above and crushed him, ending the moment in just a few seconds of dark, almost cartoonish slapstick. Production had used a real piano weighing close to 1,000 pounds and a stunt double to pull off the shot safely. The scene worked as both a joke and a message. It denied audiences any real closure with the Charlie Harper character, refusing to confirm whether the mystery man was even meant to be him. Many viewers read it as a pointed, tongue-in-cheek jab directed at Sheen and the years of public conflict between him and Chuck Lorre, a way of literally dropping the curtain on that chapter of the show's history without ever giving Sheen the satisfaction of a proper return. Others saw it simply as a fittingly weird final punchline for a show that had never taken itself too seriously. Either way, it became the single image most people remember from 12